In this video, we're going to work on the cuff part of the sock near the 3x1 rib and finish off with a stretchy cuff and a stretchy bind off. So continuing from video 2 where we stopped on our decreases. So your sock should have the decreases formed on both sides of the front part of the sock. Our beginning of the row is on this side. I'm checking again by the marker. So this is the beginning of my row is on here, the front part of the sock. So now I'm going to be knitting in the round. On the sole side of the sock, it's stockinette stitch at the moment, so I need to knit the back in the 3x1 rib as well as the front. So in the first round, I'm going to be turning all my stockinette stitches on the sole side into the 3x1 rib and then continue knitting the round until I get the desired length here for the cuff part. I also have all my sole stitches on one needle. I'm going to be splitting these into 2 needles so that it's easier for me to knit in the round. I begin my row with 3 knit stitches. So when you've decreased your stitches, you should end up with 3 stitches to start your front part of the sock, followed by a purl stitch, 3 knit stitches, a purl stitch, and so on. I'm just going to knit to the end of this half row, so this part of the sock, the front part, where we already have the 3x1 rib. And just the other half. And at the end of this front bit of the sock, we should also have 3 stitches left. So I end the front part with 3 stitches, 3 knit stitches. Now I'm moving on to the sole part, and here all my stitches are on one needle. So I'm going to break these stitches into 2, so they're on 2 needles, and also form the 3, but continue knitting in the 3x1 rib. So I finished the front part with 3 knit stitches, so my next stitch needs to be a purl stitch. Followed by 3 knit stitches, again a purl stitch, I knit my purl stitches in the first round using the combination method, which is different to the standard continental where we would do kind of this, twist the yarn. So if you haven't seen the combination method before, it's perfectly fine. It makes it knitting easier. It's only in the first round because my purl stitches are going to be positioned differently using the combination method. So I will proceed to knitting in kind of the purl stitches through the back loop going forward. So I'm just double checking. I've got all my 3 knit stitches followed by 1 purl stitch. I have 2 knit stitches left at the end of this row, so I'm going to purl them together because I just need 1 purl stitch. So from now on, I'm knitting in the round my 3x1 rib, and I need to knit. Let me just measure, take my ruler. I'm just going to measure the cuff. So I'm going to just measure from here to here. So that's approximately 9.5 centimeters. So 9.5 centimeters, knitting the 3x1 rib before progressing to the final cuff rib and closing the stitches. So that's what I'm going to knit. If you want to knit your cuff shorter or a little bit longer, that's perfectly fine. You're free to do here whatever suits you. Let's just knit one more round where I'm going to knit in the round again the 3x1 rib, and I'm going to split out the stitches on the rear part of the sock, on the sole side of the sock. How I knit the purl stitch here, I knit it through the back loop. I insert the needle through the back and then pick up the yarn. This does speed up. I do find that this speeds up the knitting process quite a lot without having to do any extra maneuvers to knit the purl stitch in the normal way, the way we kind of taught how to knit purl stitches in the continental method. So there's the reason you knit quicker is because there's less change of your yarn position. Your yarn kind of stays almost unchanged, and it helps you to knit your purls and knits, to change between purls and knits smoothly and with less effort. So I'm just going to knit half of the stitches on one needle, and then use another needle to knit the other half of the stitches on the back part of the sole part of the sock. So I think it's now a good time to change. And again. This purl stitch is a little bit twisted, so I'm just going to turn it over. And my last stitch is a purl stitch, and then now I've got a 3x1 rib knitted in the round all the way until we reach the desired length. The leg of the sock is now complete, and I'm ready to move to knitting the cuff. And using the sample of my already completed sock, I'd like to talk a little bit about this cuff that we are going to knit. So the cuff is knitted in 2 rows. There's a pattern to this cuff, pattern made up of 2 rows. And if we have a look on the wrong side of this cuff, you can see that the stitches which are purls on the right side look like twisted knit stitches on the wrong side. So we're going to knit these stitches. So we're going to knit our purls in the way they are formed as twisted stitches on the wrong side. This cuff holds shape quite well. You can stretch it and it bounces back into its shape. The pattern for the cuff is made up in 2 rows. The first row for the cuff, and it's the only row that's going to be knitted this way, is going to be 1 knit, 1 purl. So we begin with, so we kind of knit checker pattern. So our row begins kind of, here's the beginning of my row. I'll put a marker here, and it's aligned with a marker here at the bottom. So my very first stitch is a knit stitch. So this is kind of staying as a knit stitch. My second 2 stitches is 2 knit stitches. So the second stitch needs to be a purl stitch. I'm knitting this purl stitch through the front loop. The second stitch is a knit stitch that stays as that. This stitch is a purl stitch. So where we had purl stitches, they remain as purl stitches, but where we had 3 stitches, 3 knit stitches, the middle stitch becomes our purl stitch now, and it's knitted through the front loop. We want, from now on, we're knitting all our purl stitches through the front loop. I'm using the combination method still, and the reason we're knitting them through the front loop is so that we have those twisted knit stitches on the wrong side. So again, the middle one becomes the middle knit stitch becomes a purl stitch again. Purl stitches are knitted through the front loop. If it's not clear what I'm doing with the purl stitches, so if you have a look at the purl stitch here, it's kind of positioned positioned this way, whereas previously I purled it through, kind of insert my right needle through the back and then knit this way. This time for this calf, for the calf rib, I'm going to pick up the purl stitch through the side which is facing me here, and this is gonna create that twisted stitch on the back. At this stage, you might not be familiar with different methods of knitting continental style. I know there are a few methods of knitting. The English method has also variations, different methods to knit that, different styles to knit that. So it doesn't really matter. I think you still get the same or very similar result no matter which style you use. What matters here is actually, in my opinion, being able to knit all these different styles and adapt to knitting this way, because sometimes I find if my wrists are tired, for example, I might want to adjust my knitting style to suit. Or if I'm knitting just stockinette stitch, my knitting is stockinette stitch in back and forth, then my preferred method is the combination method, because it's an easier and faster way of knitting without putting a lot of strain on my wrists. So definitely worth learning different ways of knitting, even if we kind of always tend to lean to the one that we find the easiest. Still worth learning a different way of doing stuff. Ours can be quite physically demanding if we knit a lot. So the first row has now been done. So all my pattern now is in knit stitch, purl stitch, followed by a purl stitch. So now I'm going to slip my purl stitch in the second row. I'm going to slip all my purl stitches with the yarn in front. So the knit stitch is going to be a knit stitch. Now the purl stitch, yarn in front of the needle, yarn in front, and then pick the loop that's facing the side of the loop that's facing us on the left needle, and slip it off the stitch. Again, knit one, insert the needle. The next one is a purl stitch, so insert the needle into it from the side, yarn in front, and slip the purl stitch. And we're going to continue doing this with all our purl stitches to the end of this row. So this basically is the row 2. What we're going to do in row 2. I'm just going to continue. As you slip in the stitches, it's worth just tightening the yarn slightly. You don't want it too tight because you want your rib to be stretchy. So, but make sure the yarn isn't too slack at the front. I think naturally we tend to pull it anyway, because the next one is it's kind of slip purl stitch, and next one is a knit stitch. So kind of naturally the yarn is pulled to form the next stitch. So another thing I'd like to mention, if the main leg of the sock is quite tall, which means the cuff sits well above your ankle, you might want to add extra stitches into this cuff so that it fits well on your leg. It's something to think about if you want this part to be the leg part to be quite tall. So you would need to increase the stitches. If your the leg of the sock isn't too long or shorter than mine, then you should be fine. You shouldn't need to worry about that. So that's my row 2 done. The third row is the same as the first row. So it's knit 1, purl 1. And here, if we look at our purl stitch, we need to make sure we pick the side of the purl stitch which faces us on the left needle. So it's this side here, and we need to purl it. I purl it again. This is a continental combination method. So that's how I'm doing this in this method. If you're purling using the conventional conventional continental method, which is basically like that, you will find that your purl stitch is positioned differently now. So in that case, you just need to pick up in the next row, you need to pick up the part of the stitch which is behind us. So in this case, you would pick up this kind of leg from the back. You just basically reverse what I do. I hope that makes sense. But if you observe the positioning of your stitches, then I think it becomes clear. And it's quite important to recognize which way our stitch, particularly purl stitch, is facing, because that determines kind of how our knitting turns out. So on the wrong side, you can see that the purl stitches, which are knit stitches on the wrong side, are starting to form as twisted stitches, and that's kind of what we want. I'm going to continue knitting in the round. I'm going to go ahead and complete this round and knit my calf and knit the rest of the remainder of my calf. So in total I have 15 rows on this calf. So when you the last row needs to be, before the bind off, needs to be the one without slip stitches. So that's the row that we knit and purl, not the row where we slip the stitches. So you can make this taller, shorter if you want. Probably shorter isn't gonna be as great, or kind of whatever works for you. You can experiment. Obviously knitting is all about individualism and doing what works for you and what makes sense. And then once I've knitted these 15 rows, I will demonstrate how to do this bind off that doesn't tighten the sock and holds the shape together with the ribbed calf.
In row 16, we're going to bind off. We're going to make yarn overs before every stitch that we bind off. So first knit the first knit stitch, make a yarn over, next one is a purl stitch, purl it as normal, and I'll pass both the yarn over and the first stitch over the purl stitch. The next stitch is a knit stitch, so again we make a yarn over but the other way round, knit the knit stitch and do the same, pass the yarn over and the purl stitch over this knit stitch. Again, yarn over, purl, and pass both stitches over the purl stitch. And so we continue all the way in the round. Please note the direction of the yarn overs before the knit and purl stitches. They go in the opposite directions. Just few more stitches left to bind off, so I'm gonna finish this off. This is actually going to be my final stitch. Here I'm going to create one more stitch, break the yarn and pull the yarn through it. And our sock is finished. It's all done. You can see how even and elastic this bind off is. It stretches perfectly and bounces back into shape. Now we need to hide this tail. So let's see how we do this. We will need a yarn needle or a needle that is big, long and of quite a big needle, like I've got here. Then we need to thread the yarn into a needle. We now need to join this edge from the bound of edge to the beginning of the row. So insert a needle from the front to the back, like so. Pull the yarn and now go back to the front to the bound of edge. Find the last stitch and again go front to back. And we continue going front to back 2 or 3 times. And now go back on the to the wrong side of our knitting, and now let's hide this thread by weaving it into the into our knit stitches. We just now need to cut off the loose end of yarn, and our sock is ready for blocking and wearing. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you've managed to knit something. If you did, please let me know in the comment box below if you found this video useful, or share, maybe you'll share your project, what you managed to knit. I would love to know. Thank you very much. I see you in the next video. Bye for now.